Hi, it's Jules here. Time for some more motion graphics. We're starting off with a goldfish bowl. Do you ever feel like you are working in a goldfish bowl or being looked at? Next up, this is actually a bonus, an extra graphic this month. There is already a super thanks inside, but I wanted a better 3D version on this particular occasion as I needed it myself. So this is obviously if you do any YouTube, your fans or subscribers can send you money using super thanks. So this is anything to do with YouTube or monetization, profit. You could even use it for that, couldn't you? To symbolize that. Next up, we have a die. It's called a dice, but I believe it should actually be called a die. But you know what? If you want a second, you could just copy and paste it, okay? And then you could move it off to the side, for example. Let's just try this. 2 6s. So lucky, winning, gambling, you name it. Next up, we have a college, which is great if you are talking about anything to do with education or training. Next up, we have a transition, a cloud transition. So just to remind you, here's the footage here, the A footage, the B footage here, and you place your transition on the track above in the center so that it transitions like that. Next up, we have film grain. So basically, you can see the grain here. Now, you could use this for archive or old footage, but just memories, for example, flashbacks. You can even use it over a document, something in the past, or just something to highlight graphics behind it, like text as well. So you can use it in multiple ways. Think out of the box a little bit. Also, I realized that if you just don't put it over anything, it looks pretty cool as just a backdrop like this as well. So it's fairly flexible. Next up, we have these cool little lines. So with text, you always want to be thinking, how can you make your text more interesting? It can get quite dull. So you could use this in any of your videos. Particularly, I think it will be great with your captions on your short form videos as well. So you've got a squiggly one and a line as well. Doesn't have to be text. You could be emphasizing an object on the screen as well, anything really. Next up, we have a different style of $sign. Then we have this, what's called a flow. It's basically like a highlighter. It's just like pointing at an object that you might have. Obviously, if you're doing anything to do with water, you could use it as well. Just add some sort of focus and interest. Next up, dropping the ball. I'm sure you know what that symbolizes. Next up, we have a fingerprint, anything to do with identity, security, cybersecurity, online security, passwords, technology, you name it, you could use it for that. Next up, we have this TV. So you can basically place your footage below on the layer below. So that's the footage there. And then it just transitions into that. So it could be anything to do with retro, or just putting the focus on a talking head, or just making it more interesting. Next up, we have a cool gold background. You could blur this out if you wanted to, depends what software you're using. In ScreenFlow, which I'm using right now, you would go for the Gaussian blur, which is there. And then you could blur it out if you wanted to put text over, so it's less complicated in the background. But you could also use it without the filter. You could put graphics over the top, cutouts, you name it. Next up, we have this background, which is kind of like rain, I suppose, but it's just interesting. This is it. There's two versions. One is transparent and one just has the black background, just in case. I realize you might want to use it just as a background like this, which I think is quite nice. Or you might want to use the transparent one and layer it over the top. It's quite subtle, but you can see it could go over a landscape or anything really. Now, next up, we have secret source. Then we have an infinity loop. Then we have a tablet and a stylus or a pen. Then we have, in fact, there's actually a newer version of this with more appropriate sound effects, like of writing on the screen or drawing. So ignore that sound effect. The actual one in the library has got a slightly different sound effect. Next up, we have a dumbbell if you're in the health or wellness niche. And a reminder, there is a new category inside called health and diet, where I've moved in relevant items into that separate category. Next up, speaking of which, we have pain. So I've just layered this over an image here. It's like a throbbing pain, but don't forget, it doesn't have to be just the health niche. You could be talking about pain in business or financial pain, you name it. And then last but not least, we have this. So I've just done a screen capture of a short form video, YouTube short. Now you will notice that YouTube, a couple of months ago, was it, maybe a little bit longer, they allowed you to add a link to your long video. So inside of your Creator Studio, you can add a link to the short. So you're talking, you've got a short version of it and you're talking about that, but people can click on this link here and go and watch the long form. So you could be using your shorts to tease your long form videos, or just driving traffic to your channel, where that's where you're going to get probably more subscribers and get people engaged in your longer form content. So I thought, why not have a graphic like this? Because it's very small. There, the YouTube link is pretty small and not very conspicuous. Now you could mention it in your video as well, but then of course, if you do that, then this video, you can't reuse it again on different platforms that don't have this, if you see what I mean. If you're only doing YouTube shorts or doing versions of your shorts just for YouTube, you could talk about go watch my long video. Fair enough. Otherwise, you could just have this, and it's giving people a heads up that they could click on that to get to the related video. Okay, so that's it for now. Don't forget, you can add a suggestion by looking at the sidebar inside the product. There's a link there inside the club, and look forward to hearing your suggestions and seeing how you use these graphics. Thanks very much, and I'll speak to you very soon.